So today I am so excited because I have a very special guest that I want to introduce you. Her name is Nina Sachdev. Do I say your name right?
Yeah, Sachdev. Yep.
Sachdev. Forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
She is an attorney and went to law school at UC Davis, King Hall, and spent much of her time at their immigration clinic, working as naturalization workshop, asylum, and other cases. Nina Sachdev works as a community relations specialist for the Northern California offices of USCIS. She joined USCIS in 2007 as an asylum officer and have worked in many areas within USCIS, including refugee processing, management, and appeals. She's the daughter of immigrants, and her family's immigration journey inspired her to study immigration and ultimately join USCIS. Nina, welcome. I really appreciate you coming here. I know the busy schedule that you have, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, and I'm excited to share what I know. I have worked for this agency for a long time, and really immigration has been my passion since I was young, and kind of figuring out how did my parents get here? What is the story of my family and their roots and this whole process? And it's just there's so much in our history, good and bad, and with this role, and I feel so privileged to have this job, that I get to connect with everybody and help them on their immigration journey. So I'm so glad that I have the honor to join, and you have invited me, and the work you've done is just incredible. So it's really an honor to be here, and you sent me a lot of questions of people you know, so I hope I get to answer as much as I can today, and share what I know. Some things I may not be able to, but let's see. Right?
Yes, thank you so much. And I just wanted to say that I really respect what you do. And then when people think about USCIS, I remember my first time coming here, and this is true for a lot of immigrants. We feel intimidated, people feel intimidated. And I really think you are our voice inside the USCIS. You are someone who have had, the experience from having immigrant parents, like you said, and then also your work experience gives you a direct access what immigrants deal with. And I really, really appreciate everything that you do, and I have a huge respect for you.
That's very kind of you. I feel like I'm just one part of the whole process here, but I appreciate that's very kind. So I did put together a presentation based on the questions that you sent me, so I can go ahead and present.
Please.
Shall we start?
Yes.
Okay,
you have the floor.
Good. So I'm going to share my screen, and as we go, if you want to stop me as we go or wait till the end, up to you. But I have a lot of slides. Can you see my slides?
I can see it. Yes. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do a really general overview of immigration, of how to, what's a visa, getting a green card, and naturalization. And then I want to share some of the resources on our website, because I know USCIS, as you say, it can be intimidating. The website itself can be very intimidating, but there are some key places to go to help sort of break it down a little bit and find really what you're looking for. So I want to show you that too. Okay, shall we get started here?
That sounds good.
Good. So I wanted just to start with the federal agencies, because some people still refer to immigration as INS, right? That's kind of how it was for a few decades. But after September 11th, what happened? The Homeland Security Act was passed in 2002, and that restructured our immigration agencies into 3 separate agencies. So there's no more INS. There is CBP, the Customs and Border Protection. Okay, those are the officers that are at the border or at the airports inspecting immigrants, everybody coming in. Then you have ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement, right? They can arrest, detain, deport people. And then they also do a lot of work to combat human trafficking and investigate crimes of human trafficking. So both CBP and ICE can arrest and detain people. I am with USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. We do not have that authority to arrest anybody. No, we are very administrative. This is the agency you apply for all the different immigration processes. And my colleagues are reviewing cases, sometimes interviewing people when necessary or when the law requires, and making decisions, right? And giving sort of that immigration benefit and status. So this is our mission statement. It's a new one under this administration and our new director, who I just think is amazing. Our mission statement is USCIS upholds America's promise as a nation of welcome and possibility with fairness, integrity, and respect for all we serve. And I really think that holds true for all of us working at USCIS. There's about 19,000 of us employees and contractors that work around the country, and we have several international offices as well, where they're often with the US embassies and consulates abroad. Okay, so the screen is frozen for me, so I hope you can still hear me.
I can hear you.
I'll just continue. Good. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about, one of the questions you sent was, how do people come to the United States? How do they immigrate, basically? So just in general, there's really kind of in general 5 ways of entering. You can enter as a non-immigrant, in case this is temporary stay, right? You have a visa to enter. You can enter as an immigrant. Okay, I know people say generally immigration, but legally being an immigrant means you're immigrating and staying permanently. Okay, you have that legal way to stay permanently in the United States. Okay, you can come in as a refugee, right? I used to interview refugees, and I went to Jordan, I went to Nepal, and interviewed people to see if they're eligible and meet the requirements of the United States law that we have, and they can enter and receive that refugee status. Some people from various countries, there's about 40 countries that the United States has an agreement with, that do not need a visa to enter, but they do need to get sort of a travel authorization document, that ESTA, but they don't really have to go through that formal visa process, and that's called the Visa Waiver Program. And they can stay for up to 90 days, but they cannot stay any longer than that. They can't work, it's just basically for tourism or business, and then they just have to leave after 90 days. And then there's people entering as parolees, right? And we're seeing that right now quite a bit, of course, with the Afghan nationals coming in as parolees, Ukrainian as well as Venezuelan. Now we have those programs where they can enter as parolees. So that's sort of the general way, okay? And then I'm going to go into all of these in detail.
That is so awesome that you actually have this slide, because nowadays people think if you say immigrant, it's all one thing. So this is really amazing that you
exactly
have this.
Okay, so what is a visa, right? Generally to enter, you need a visa to enter, okay? So the Department of State, so that's our sister agency and not us, the Department of State issues visas to immigrants and non-immigrants at the US consulate or embassy, right? So often an interview is involved in this, fingerprint taking is involved in this to get that visa, okay? That now allows the foreign national, okay, somebody from another country, to apply for admission. But once you get the visa, it's not a complete guarantee, right? Because once you get to the airport or the border and you show the visa, still that immigration officer from Customs and Border Protection, CBP, they're going to ask a few questions, right, to make sure that this visa was valid, and it makes sense this person has this kind of visa because they got a certain visa to come in for a certain purpose. And let's see, ask them questions to see if they're actually there for that purpose. So they can cancel and revoke the visa, right? But I know even before you get on the plane, at the airport, the airlines, the office, there's so much when you're in, when I'm traveling from India to the United States, I'm visiting family, there's so many inspection points. So I know in so many countries at the airports, you even have to go through so much even before you get on the plane. And then even get on the plane, you get here, you come to the airport, and then again, you talk to the immigration official here to go through all of this process to make sure you're entering with the correct documents and for the correct reasons based on your documents.
Yeah, so there's nothing
Right.
to fear, right? They're not going to take the visa away, even though they're checking, right?
Yeah. Okay, so a non-immigrant, okay, so we have immigrants and non-immigrants, right? So this is the term we use. Non-immigrant is somebody who's coming for a temporary entry for a specific purpose. So you can see this is the kind of stamp in the passport that's received once you go to the US embassy or consulate, you have that interview. So this is people who are coming in for tourism, okay, just to visit family here, maybe to go to a certain, park, go to Disneyland, whatever it is, or coming here for a business meeting, a business purpose, okay. Non-immigrants are also students. That's also temporary. The F1 students, that's temporary. H-1B is actually a temporary visa. Okay, that can lead to permanency, but it's temporary. So there's many categories and types of non-immigrant visas, right? Which means you're here temporary. And some you can work on, like I said, H-1B, and then there's some students, they can, after they're done with school, they can do that optical practical training, OPT, right? Or they can extend or change to different non-immigrants. But really it's in its essence, it's temporary for a specific purpose. Okay. On the other hand, immigrants, where you're immigrating, I mean, you're picking up your bags, you have this time period to really collect all your belongings together in your country and move here permanently. Okay, it's permanent status, permanent residence in the United States. So in that person's passport, they would, if they're abroad, they'd go through that the US embassy there, the consulate, go through that process, have the interview. They get a stamp in their passport that looks just like a temporary visa. But when they come in, the officers at the airport stamp it and say, okay, you're here permanently. And that stamp in that passport is like a green card, right? And then they're going to get a green card in the mail in a couple months, right? So some ways to become a permanent resident is the humanitarian programs that we have, like being a refugee or coming in and applying for asylum. The diversity lottery, okay? This is where, every year, up to 55,000 immigrants can come in. There's visas available for 55,000 immigrant visas are available. They're drawn randomly from various countries that have very low rates of immigration to the United States. Okay, so USCIS is only a part of that. It's really run by Department of State. Okay, and I know you asked a question about that. But really all that information is really on Department of State. And I did find on Department of State website too, that they have a whole website talking about the fraud, because there have people been getting emails saying you've won the diversity visa, right? That's been happening for so many years, decades even, and it's not true. So they actually have a dedicated web page that talks about it. And so I can share that with you later, and you can, email it or post it or send it out.
That is so awesome. So, did I ever tell you I came with the diversity lottery?
You did. All right.
Yes, it's really an awesome program, and a lot of people are confused about, how to do that. So thank you so much for, separately sending me the information so I can incorporate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. But the majority of ways people become permanent residents is through their family. Okay, that family petition, right? And then some people can get it through an employer petitioning for them as well. And then they can come here permanently. So the way that looks is if somebody is already in the United States and they're going to apply for a green card while they're here, that's called adjustment of status. Okay, that's where somebody would likely go to one of our offices for an interview and show your documents and to make sure you qualify for the green card. But many people, of course, are abroad outside the United States, and they'll go to the US Embassy or consulate, and that's what we call consular processing. And Department of State is heavily involved in that process. They're the ones who are really doing the interviews and looking at the paperwork and all of that stuff, because Department of State is really the people who are running all those US embassies and consulates abroad. So we work closely with them, and that's sort of that process there.
So by the way, you just educated me, every time, we learn a new thing, and I did not know for some reason Department of State was separate from USCIS. So it's really good to know that. Thank you
Yes,
for clarifying
they're a
that.
separate agency. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't have direct connection to Department of State colleagues. They're trained in their own department, in their own way with immigration. We don't like share that training together. I don't see them in any of our training classes, for instance. So it's totally separate. But
Incredible.
there is some interaction in terms of the petitions going back and forth and all that stuff. So
Incredible.
yeah. Yeah. So the family-based immigration, because this is the majority of people receiving green cards and applying for green cards is really through family. So I know you had asked, who can petition and for which kind of relative can you petition for? So this slide just really breaks it down. US citizens can petition for their spouse, okay, their children, and this is really children of any age, and sons and daughters. Sons and daughters mean basically they're over 21, okay. Children is what we consider under 21. So that's sort of the legal definition there. And then US citizens who are 21 years old, then they can petition for their parents and brothers and sisters. Okay, so that's it. The US citizens cannot petition for cousins or aunts and uncles, right? Or nephews and nieces. That's not on the list.
Right.
Right, so that's it. Okay, and then permanent residents can petition for their spouse and their unmarried children. So that would be considered under 21, or unmarried sons and daughters over 21. So basically your kids who are not married. Okay, and they have to stay unmarried until they get, either they went through consular processing to the US Embassy or Consulate, then they enter the United States and they get, approval to enter, and they're permanent residents. They cannot get married until they come to the US. Okay?
Oh, wow.
Or they get their green. Yes, they cannot. So I know there's a lot of kids who are waiting. Some of them want to get married. Some of them got married and thought, oh, it's fine, but once you get married, if you're, the petition is because your parent, your mother or father is a permanent resident and you get married, there's no more petition for you. You don't qualify.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
the people, lawful permanent residents, they cannot apply for parents or brothers or sisters. Is that correct?
No, that's right. This is the list. That's it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, you have to be a citizen to apply for brothers and sisters and parents. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's that process. So, okay, so then you asked also about wait times, right? So this is kind of going to explain a little bit of those wait times, okay? So we have two separate categories. We call immediate relatives and preference, okay? So the immediate relatives is a spouse of, so it's basically US citizens who are petitioning for their spouses, husband, wives, or their unmarried children, okay, under 21, or their parents, right?
Right.
If a US citizen is petitioning for them, then that relative does not need to wait for a visa, okay? They are just waiting for the time that the application process happens, okay? Right. Which is taking some time, right? So I'm going to show you that the petition that's filed is called the I-130, a petition for alien relative. And that's taking, even for parents of a US citizen, that's taking about 10, 11 months. Okay, 80% of cases are done in 10. So it is taking some time. So it's not that they're not going to wait at all, because the process for reviewing the case does take time, but you don't have to wait for that visa to be available.
Yeah, my mom came that way, and my dad applied for her, and I think she got here like in 4 or 5 months, and we were like, oh my God. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I know what you mean.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But then all the other relationships, everything else we talked about in the other slide, they have to wait for that visa. Okay. So the unmarried son or daughter of a US citizen who's 21 or older, right? Spouses or unmarried children, unmarried sons and daughters of permanent residents, right? Okay. Or married sons and daughters of US citizens, or brothers and sisters of US citizens, they all have to wait. Okay. And so what's the wait time, right? Then this is the hopefully familiar, I would think, is that visa bulletin, right? You're going to look. And again, Department of State is the one that works on this. They have an office, a mastermind of people who are saying, okay, you know, and it goes back to Congress, you know, Congress and Department of State, you know, the Congress has a law that there's only a certain amount of visas every year for every single category. And then Department of State works on it and breaks it down, right? And then you're seeing from China, India, Mexico, Philippines, there's so many family members petitioning that they've had to make cutoff dates, right? And some of them are very long, very, very long. You can see like 20 years almost, depending on the category, right? So like brothers and sisters, you know, a brother or sister of somebody from the Philippines, right? A US citizen, a petition for a brother and sister from the Philippines, they have to wait since 2004. They're looking at petitions from 2004 right now. They can apply. Yeah, yeah. So that's it's a long wait time. So that's what makes it, people are saying, you know, why do I have to wait so long? Because there's only a certain number of visas that are allotted every year. And then you have to figure out who is it going to go to. You know, these countries have a lot of petitions. So you have to make, you know, this is how they're kind of trying to make the lines basically of when. And once that visa is available, you look at this and the visa is available, then they can start that process of applying for a green card or going through what we call that consular processing at the US Embassy or consulate. Okay, and have those interviews and, you know, get ready, right? And then some like brothers and sisters, you know, siblings are like, well, I've waited 20 years. I'm not going to come now, you know,
exactly.
right? They decide not to come. It's just been so long, you know. So,
yeah, we have roots now that, you know, not going to leave. Yeah, but I get it. Yeah. So are there visa waiting time for every country in that website that you have put on the top?
Yes, this is it. Yes, so the China, India, Mexico, Philippines has these dates, but every people from all the other countries, they just are in that second column, where it says all chargeability area except those listed.
I see.
So, you know, let's say it's Vietnam, then you're going to look to the dates in that first, in the column with the dates, the first one there.
Right. If we say Ethiopia and Eritrea, it would fall.
Ethiopia, Eritrea, right. Basically all the African countries, right?
Yes, all African countries.
Exactly.
Yes.
Most of the world. Most of the world is looking.
Most of the world. Okay. But it's still less time, less waiting time, I guess.
A little less waiting, but it's still long. I mean, again, brothers and sisters from Ethiopia are going to be waiting, you know, that means their relative filed that petition back in 2007, right?
Oh my God.
15. So the first number is not the year. The first number is the day. So it's December 15, 2007, for instance, right?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you are just telling me that I'm never going to see my brother and sister in America. I'm just kidding.
Well, they can visit, or you can visit them, but permanently to live, you know, and have that permanent residence. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yes, it's a very long time, and it's very frustrating for everybody. Yeah.
So how do you get started, right? Is petitioning for your relative. You just, as soon as you know, whenever you get your status as a permanent resident or a citizen, you can file the petition, right? It's that form I-130, okay? That's going to establish that relationship with your relative, you know, that is sort of in those categories. It doesn't grant your relative permanent resident status, right? It's basically saying we are related and I've proved it. And, you know, if they're one of the relatives that have to wait for a visa, they have that priority date, right? And they're going to check on the visa bulletin again if the priority date is current, right? Where they can then go through and apply for the green card process. So that's kind of how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
And at
then we have
I'm sorry. At what point should they? We know that it has a long waiting process. So at what point should people, you know, fill this out? Like they can fill it out as soon as they become a citizen, and then
absolutely the next day, right? Same day. Absolutely. Same day. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So they can wait. Thank you.
Yeah, the day they take that oath to be a U.S. citizen, you know, and then some people have already petitioned for their relatives as permanent residents, and then they become a U.S. citizen. Okay, so then generally our systems will update it automatically, but sometimes people may need to contact USCIS. It depends on the situation, but they can always contact the contact center to make sure that, you know, the petition is now moved. I'm a U.S. citizen, so, you know.
Yeah.
my relatives should move to a different category, basically, right?
Right, but like trust,
Yeah.
but very high, like my husband would say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Generally,
should
it happens
call.
automatically. Yeah.
They should call and say, "Hey, I applied for this. Now that I'm citizen, is my 130? What is it called?
I-130. Yeah.
I
I-130.
30 130. Is it still there? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be there. And
Yeah.
honestly, it does happen automatically.
Oh, okay.
Internally,
Right.
it does happen automatically. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
it's okay. Yeah. Okay. So the employment-based categories, it's another process, right? If people can become permanent residents through their employer, basically there's a job offer and they have to work with the Department of Labor in this process. There's visas for people investing, right? There's like the investor visa. That's kind of interesting there. People who are self-petitioning, people who have, extraordinary abilities, right? This sort of top level researchers and things like that. They have sort of it depends on your skills, your background, all this stuff. There's different ways to get permanent residency basically based on that. And, this is kind of an example. This is even just the surface. I'm not even going to get to the details. It gets so complicated. But, EB1 is somebody with extraordinary ability, right? They have a preference there. So there's more visas available, and it's sort of a faster process when you do have more skills and more education. It's very interesting. I always thought that, when I was younger, I thought, oh, people could just come. But the United States, we really look at, this is who we want. This is who we prefer. We want people with talent, with skills, who want that opportunity. But of course, we need people with all sorts of skills, right? We have sort of the agricultural workers that are needed, but they're on H2A and H2B visas for unskilled workers. So there's those visas available, but those are temporary. So it's just really, it's interesting. And, there's a lot of questions that come up about fairness here, but, I think it's just like sort of the reality here of immigration, right? That's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why there are so many people working hard to make sure there's fairness, right?
Yeah. Yep. And that's how my parents came. They were the first family of all of the family members. They were like that anchor family that came through employment. And then everybody else was petitioned for after that, right? So
that is so incredible.
So interesting.
You should be proud of your parents.
Oh, they're amazing. I mean, they're just amazing people. And you asked me about public charge, so I'm glad you did, because I do want to share that, public charge. We've last administration changed the rules, but it's changed back. And this is a sort of a final rule, as final as we can possibly make it now within our what we call Code of Federal Regulation, or CFR, that we've done it. And basically, public charge, this idea, right? It's going to say, is somebody a public charge? Are they primarily dependent on the government? But we're only looking at people when they're applying for a visa, admission, or the green card process. Okay. So it does not apply when you're applying to naturalize, to be a citizen. We are not considering public charge at all. Okay. So this is basically, we're checking if somebody's primarily dependent on the government because they have received public cash assistance for income maintenance. So they're receiving it for a long time. Like they're just totally dependent on the government, or long-term institutionalization, right, at a government expense. So there's not that many people. Honestly, there's really not that many people who will not become green card holders because of this. This is not the reason they wouldn't receive a green card. It's very few people. So there's a lot of rumors. A lot of people stopped receiving public benefits because they were afraid this would apply to them. And we want to say no.
Yes.
Most people are, it's gonna be okay. And here, because I'll tell you, it's not just about the public benefits. So when you're applying for a green card, okay? The immigration officer is going to look, what is your age, your health, your family status, your assets, right? Your education and your skills. They're going to look at that affidavit of support, okay? They're going to check everything, all of that, to see in the future, could you be a public charge or not, right? Could you be primarily dependent or not? So I tell you, before all this change of the rules in our offices, I mean, I talked to some of the directors and they're like, we barely even consider this. I mean, there's barely a case that has come in all of their years working there where we would even think that this could apply, public charge could apply to somebody. It's very, very few,
Right.
you know. Yeah.
This
And then this is
a
the
very
basically
important one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're receiving public benefits, when you're thinking if you could become a public charge, okay, if the immigration officer is thinking it might be a public charge, the public benefits they're looking at, if you're getting them, is going to be SSI, that cash assistance, really. It's really the cash assistance, okay, or the long-term institutionalization. But even if you received it in the past, that's not in itself sufficient to say you can't get a green card. Okay, we're looking at all of those factors. We're looking at affidavit of support, how long you received these benefits, you know, all this stuff, right? And then all of these benefits, this is not even the complete list, but we are not looking at, if somebody's getting SNAP, right? They're getting food assistance, they're getting the child health insurance program, Medicaid, affordable housing, transportation, disaster relief, anything related to pandemic, cash assistance, right? Their earned cash benefits, like from Social Security, tax credits, anything with tax credits, deductions. If you get aid because you're a survivor of trafficking or a crime, or any vaccines or anything related to COVID testing and vaccines, you know, testing for other diseases, right? All of these things, this does not even count. Everyone should know that they can receive all of these benefits and assistance and they'll be just fine, basically.
Right. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, coming to the US, unless you came with a job, it's impossible to live without any public assistance. So it's good to know, because a lot of people actually get scared, like you said, because, oh my God, I don't want this to affect my green card application. So this is very good information. And for people, if they are in doubt, then they can also check with their, you know, local public nonprofits and ask if that's going to be a problem, right? Before they do that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And there's a really great website I'm going to send you to, Protecting Immigrant Families. They have flyers in about 12 or 13 languages that explain it so simply. You know, if this applies to you, it doesn't apply to you. You know, all of these things that I talked about. It's wonderful. So I'll send that to you too. It's really great.
Thank you. Yes,
they have great flyers.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then even, you know, regarding public charge. So we have a lot of humanitarian programs, right? You might be familiar with these also. So basically, you know, people who are special immigrant juveniles, who are refugees, asylees, that are later applying for a green card or are petitioning because of the Violence Against Women Act to get their green card, or they had a T or U visa getting a green card, or if there was, you know, a humanitarian parole or TPS. So when anybody who had those categories and they were receiving assistance, public assistance because of that immigration status at the time, the public charge rule does not apply at all to them either. So a refugee or asylee who's going to apply for a green card, we're not even considering public charge at all. They're basically exempt from that concept, right? Or somebody who is applying because of the Violence Against Women Act, or they had a T or U visa, they're applying for a green card. That public charge rule does not even, we don't even consider that applying it to them. It's against the law to apply it to them. So they're exempt basically from that.
This is a very valuable information.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about these programs. I'm going to move a little quick because I know we want to leave time for any other questions. But just to touch on, you know, there is a program we have for children who are abused, abandoned, and neglected, for them to get permanent residency. It's called Special Immigrant Juveniles. You know, they have a court order. They're often helped by nonprofits. We have wonderful nonprofits, at least in Santa Clara and in many other places that help with this process. So, you know, these children can get immigration status. The asylum process, you know, anybody who's here in the US can apply for asylum. Doesn't matter if you already have status or not. You're supposed to apply within your first year, but if you have a changed circumstance and now you're going to apply, or check. Okay, I'll go on. Sorry. Or you have an extraordinary circumstance. So people who are in parole status, they can apply. They're still in parole status. They can apply even after the first year they're here, or their parole status expired. You can apply at least within a reasonable time. And reasonable is kind of what's reasonable to you to apply after that parole status expires, to apply for asylum, and you'll still be eligible. So that's another program, of course. And then the Violence Against Women Act. So these are for abused spouses, children, and parents of US citizens, or abused spouses and children of permanent residents. It's not just women, men too, right? They just, in the law, they put women, but it's anybody in those categories.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know. I wish they didn't say it was, it's kind of an older law, so that's
because it can happen both ways.
It could have been anybody, right? Any male or female, right? But
yes.
It's so who are, anybody in that situation, if they are being abused, not just physical, it can be emotional, financial, they do not need to stay with their abuser. They can leave and self-petition, right? So this means their US citizen, spouse or parent, or child petition for them. They have that I-130 petition, okay? Or their permanent residence spouse or parent in that case, applied and did that petition, the I-130 petition, then they're being abused. They can leave the relationship and they can file for the green card on their own. They use a different form called the I-360 form, but they file on their own, they self-petition. And they don't even have to tell their abuser. They don't have to tell that US citizen or permanent resident that they were married to, or that was their parent, or even was their child, right? They can do it. That is a way to do that. And then we have visas for victims or survivors of human trafficking, okay? There's 5,000 visas available every year, and we do not reach the cap. So we know there's a lot of survivors out there who can benefit from this visa, who have no immigration status, who can get a visa, T visa, and they can eventually become permanent residents, which means you can become a citizen after that, right? And then for U visa, there is a cap every year, the 10,000, and we do reach the cap, and there's a long wait time, but U visas for those who are victims of certain crimes, called qualified crimes, and they're working with law enforcement to investigate that crime, maybe prosecute that person involved. And these can be crimes even though happening at work. Sometimes there's crimes at work that happen. So Department of Labor can be involved, and you're helping Department of Labor investigate, for instance. So right. That's available too. And once somebody gets that visa, they can then apply for permanent residency too. Right. Okay, then there's TPS. So this is a temporary status, but this was recently designated for Ethiopia, right? TPS was. So it's temporary, but you can, work and travel based on that. So this is a good category to know as well. It does not in itself lead to permanent residency because it is a temporary, but generally the countries, people who have TPS, those countries are sort of redesignated every 18 months. So you kind of have to look at the news and make sure you're applying, before it expires. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about citizenship because I know you asked about that. So some of the benefits is that you get to vote in any election, your local election, state, federal, basically when you naturalize, you have the same rights and responsibilities as someone born in the US. That's it. Just think of yourself like that. You can apply for US passport, you can run for elected office, you can work with me at USCIS, work for a US government, upgrade your family petitions, right? That US citizens can petition for their parents, brothers and sisters, and serving on a jury is a very important responsibility. These are generally the requirements. So you need to be 18, okay, to apply to naturalize. You need to be a permanent resident. For most people, it's 5 years. But if you're married to a US citizen, it's 3 years. You have to meet the physical presence and continuous residence requirements. That has to do with travel, your time outside of the United States in those last 5 years or 3 years. Meet the good moral character requirement. So when you look at the form, okay, the form to apply is the N400 form. Most of those questions is, have you ever voted? Have you ever, said you are a US citizen? That's all checking if you meet the good moral character standard, basically. And then knowledge of English and US civics and government. So we give you 100 civics questions to study. At the interview, you're asked randomly up to 10 questions, but you only need 6 correct to pass. So that's like 60%, like it's getting a D on a test, it's not too bad. And then show attachment to the Constitution, which, at the end of that application form, there's about 6 questions that ask if you're willing to support and defend the United States Constitution, right? Things like that, that shows your loyalty and attachment. So again, it's the N400 form. Once you go through it, you get a notice about fingerprints. Sometimes we're reusing them. Everyone has to go for an in-person interview at our local office. Okay, in San Jose, it's on Coleman Avenue, and then you become a citizen not at your interview, but at your oath ceremony. Right? You give us your green card, you get that naturalization certificate. It's a beautiful process. It's just amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's very emotional. Yeah. Okay, and then one thing I get questions on a lot, so I just want to touch on it. So a lot of people who are here and they have children with them who are under 18. And if your children are with you, they are green card holders or under 18, they're in your legal and physical custody. The day you become a citizen, your kids are a citizen, okay, US citizen, but they don't get any paperwork to show it. Okay, so you can apply for a US passport for them or apply for a certificate of citizenship with our agency by filing an N600. Okay, but that's how your children.
Just a quick question there. How about after they become 18? Do they need to apply for ID?
On their own.
Okay.
So if they, well, did they already become a citizen when they were under 18?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a passport?
Then they have a US passport then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so US passport is proof of US citizenship.
Perfect, yes. But after they become 18, I'm referring to they don't have any paperwork, but after they become 18, they can have paperwork like I see. Now, I will
either way, whenever.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, as soon as, it doesn't matter if they're 18. Yeah, they can apply, they're under 18, their parents can help them, get that passport or certificate of citizenship. Yeah, so hopefully they have the documents before they're 18. Right?
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, and here's just that process. Again, it's the N400 form. You can find it on our website or apply online. Right now, it's $640 plus $85 for those who are under 75 as the biometric fee. So it's $725. Okay. There is a reduced fee option for people who make less than 200%, but more than 150% of that federal poverty guideline. So, for a household of 4, that's sort of in between 41,000 and less than 55,000, just general. You can take a look at it, but which is hard to live on in the Bay Area. I don't know how that would be possible. But there's also a fee waiver for those who are receiving government benefits or, make very little money, under 150% of that federal poverty guideline, or showing financial hardship. They'll file a separate form, the form I-912 with the form N400 for the fee waiver option. So just wanted to share that. Some people can become citizens without learning English. This is how it happens, right? You're 50 years old and have your green card for 20 years. You're 55 years old and have a green card for 15 years. So you have a green card for a long time, right? And then you can do the interview in your own language. You still have to study the civics questions, but you're going to have the questions in your own language. Okay, and on our website, we have them in a lot of languages.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so you can bring an interpreter, or we have interpreters on the phone too during the interview. So
right,
that's part of it too. And if they're 65 and they had their green card for 20 years, they're only studying 20 questions, not the 100 questions, but so it's a little easier. And then I also wanted to highlight people who are disabled can still become US citizens. Okay, they have their doctor fill out a special form that says, that medically why they cannot study or cannot learn the civics questions, for instance, and they'll fill that out with the N400 form too. But, we don't discriminate against people with disabilities, right?
Right.
And then here's stuff on our website. So everything to help study for the citizenship and naturalization, USCIS.gov, click on citizenship. We have so many tests, study materials, videos, you name it. We have so much. All the questions are there. On our website, you can do a lot of things. Do you want me to show the website quickly?
Yes.
Would that be helpful? Okay. Let me do that then. here. Let's see. Can you see the website?
Yes.
You see that? Okay. So on our website, so this is the official website. I like to click on tools. Okay. And this is where I'm going to find the resources, exploring options, which I think is really neat too. You can basically say, explore my options. I am a non-citizen. I want to be a US citizen.
Right.
How do I do it? Right. And I'm going to, this is different options here. Okay.
Right.
So I go back to tools, and then case status, check your case status, change your address. You need to change your address. If you have an application with us and you move, change your address online. The post office doesn't tell us. You need to tell us.
Yes.
Right. And then we have resources in so many languages. So
right.
I really like these online tools. They're super helpful. You have your e-request, check your case status, fee calculator, check processing time, how long are certain cases taking. It's all right here. This is where I go to a lot.
That is so beautiful. And I have to admit, as an immigrant, I mean, I had a green card lottery when I came here. I had nothing to be scared of, but still I found the website very intimidating, and I would go for resources somewhere else. And I really appreciate you showing this website so others, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just free resources, and they can get a lot of information here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. So this is it. Yeah, I use the search option all the time. And there we have a virtual assistant. She speaks Spanish too. The whole website actually goes in Spanish.
I have to teach her to speak Tigrinya and Amharic.
Well, we should check. Okay, let's look at the resources for Tigrinya. I clicked up here. Right here, there's that multilingual resources. It's kind of tiny, but let's see what we have.
A lot.
Amharic?
Oh my God. Yeah, it has Amharic.
Let's find Amharic. Okay, so we have a couple of things, just a few.
Yeah.
And then let's see Tigrinya.
So many languages.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's see what they have in Tigrinya too. They have two things. Okay.
That's incredible. And I just saw Swahili and other African languages. Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, we have a brochure.
Yeah.
Yep, Somali here.
Yeah.
So a couple of things here. Yeah. Oh, a lot in Somali here. Okay, look at this.
Very useful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Lots of language. So that's where it's a lot of. Okay, so that's our website. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I'm glad, we connected, and I hope people are watching this because, I know there's a lot of scams out there.
Yes.
That's another thing I can highlight here in the tools section. There's a lot of scams, and we have a whole page on, where do I get help, tools to avoid scams, how do I report a scam, what are the common scams happening? Right. Just beware. They really do target immigrants, right? All these scammers and
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's some people in the community who are very well-meaning and they want to help. But if they don't have that immigration knowledge and they're not accredited, they don't work for one of our nonprofits who is accredited to help, or they're not an attorney that is in good standing, you really shouldn't go there, right? You need to go to somebody who's got that experience and background and the credentials to help.
Exactly. That's every time I'm within my community, I say that, like, trust but verify. My husband always says, whatever information you have, just ask the right people, right? Even I can't give you the information as you could, right? That we have to recognize the expertise, right? That's what we're trained in. So thank you so much. I think I only have one question that I keep getting, and I promised that I would ask, and this is from people from outside of the US, and they keep asking, are there any, where did I write that? I wrote it somewhere. Okay. Is there any funding for me to come to the US? I mean, people don't have an idea of what US looks like, and they want to know if there is any money lying somewhere. If they decide to come here, they would get funding for the flight and stuff like that. Are you
Yeah, so
aware of any
our
program?
agency, yeah, I can say that USCIS does not provide funding for
Okay,
coming to the US.
right. Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And that was very valuable. It's not only for my community. I have to tell you that I learned a few things that I did not know. And it's very, enlightening. Thank you so much, Nina, for everything that you do and for being a voice for our community with USCIS. And one of the beautiful things I have experienced in America, and it's still emotional for me, is the naturalization. And um, I always talk about it, and I try to go as many naturalization as I can go because that's when you get the sense of America. It doesn't matter. I mean, there are so many things going on that is around, but the feeling that you and I are one. And
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
it's beautiful to be an
It's
American. And thank you so
yeah.
much.
Thank you.